Mixtape. Track 1, Ray of Light. When they were young, they strung up 2 soup cans joined with string like they did in the movies. And she would whisper secrets into her end. And he would make up stories that grew in volume and ridicule. But all he ever heard was the soft rumble of her voice like rain on the rooftop. And all she could ever decipher was something about a blue goose named Dan. Later, they would purchase 2 flashlights and begin a nightly correspondence with rudimentary Morse code. She would nestle in bed and watch his messages beamed across her ceiling like falling stars shooting through the blackest parts of space. And he would wait by his window, letting her clicks write words made of light across his naked face. Track 2, The Space Between. When they grew older, he would meet her in the park at the end of the block, and under a watery moon, they would make plans for the future. They would go to the school with ivy that covered brick buildings like a downy newborn, and study romantic things like philosophy and art history. She would let her hair grow long and loose, that it would envelop her like a curtain while she read, a little private sanctuary of words and silence. He would write papers on an old typewriter found at a library rummage sale for $5, meeting out each letter with a heavy hand, letting the rhythm of metallic keystrokes fill the space between them. Track 3, Going to the Chapel. When he asked her to marry him, she picked up his hand and held it tight to her chest, letting it grow warm against her pink cotton blouse. She would find a dress made of baby blue lace, he a brown suit, and as they walked up the steps of the courthouse, he could hear her heels clicking against stone, echoing with each step. They would make promises of fidelity, longevity, honesty, and passion. She would look into his eyes and remember the boy, the beacon of light. He would slip the ring on her little finger, thinking of the girl whispering to him in the dark. Track 4, Life in Technicolor. When she felt the first kick, she decided to take up knitting. She would spend hours under the glow of the yellow lamp, winding strands of indigo, vermilion, and coral-colored yarn back and forth against tinny needles. He would spend hours in the garage constructing boxes filled with powdery sand or tiny bicycles balanced precariously on small, uneven rubber wheels. At dinner, they would conjure pithy, poetic names from the peas and potatoes and share slight smiles at the thought of how much their world would change. Track 5, Clean Getaway. When baby girl was 4, they took a trip to the Grand Canyon and watched the great cliffs bleach all the color from the sun. They would camp out under the stars, telling stories with no distinct beginning or end. She would run her hand through baby girl's blonde hair, leaving a trail of curls upon the red woolen blanket. He would carve pieces of wood found by the fire into bears and horses and fish suspended in motion. And in the hot summer sun, they would strip off all their clothes and wade into the cool, dark blue lake, sending ripples of excitement and wonder further downstream. Track 6, Run, Devil, Run. When he hit her for the first time, she took 2 steps backward until her spine felt flush against the wall. He would reach for her hand in apology. She would try to forget everything in the morning. A purple bruise would blossom across her right cheek like the cherry trees in spring, which she tried to hide with the translucent face powder she kept for special occasions. He would bring a bouquet of budded tulips home in the evening, but the flowers remained tightly bound until eventually they died 2 weeks later. She slowly withdrew into herself until they would navigate around each other like ships on a black sea, looking for light, afraid of jagged rocks. Track 7, Into the Mystic. When things didn't change, she finally left him, swaddling baby girl tight against her chest and dragging a battered green suitcase across the gravel driveway behind her. He would stand in the doorway of their first home, promising to change, begging for another chance. She would sit behind the steering wheel of her car for a moment, trying to suppress the tears, before maneuvering into drive and heading west, putting miles and miles between them until it was time to rest. She would wake before dawn and sit on the hood of her car in the darkness and wait for the sun, a sign that things would be different. Track 8, Rhythm of the Saints. When baby girl was 10, she asked about love. Her mother took a deep sigh, looked at her small, pale face, and smiled a little. She then told the story of a blue goose named Dan and the boy across the street, the beacon of light. She talked about the promises and the hopes and the plans they had made for the future, and the adventures they had shared, and the colors they had seen, and the way they had laughed, but also how much she had cried, and how the boy and the girl in the window were gone, but that the love was real and true.